latest episode of Rich and Wibo present the Local Artist Show. Today's guest is an award-winning writer, director, producer, and puppeteer. His work includes Josh and Todd, Animal Behavior, the Risley Brothers, and the feature-length award-winning puppet horror movie, Head. He is also the man behind the scenes as editor extraordinaire of the Claus Corner, Real Talk, and the latest sensation to hit YouTube, that would be the Local Artist Show.
Yay.
Please welcome the founder of Elmwood Productions, who is currently celebrating their 20th anniversary. Wow. Happy anniversary, John.
Happy anniversary.
Like a man, the myth, the legend.
In his own mind.
Jon Bristol, that is. I was going to say Steven Spielberg, but...
No, he's got more hair than me.
Well, John, it's so great to have you on this show because, as I mentioned in the intro, you are the editor for the Claus Corner, which is the other show I do, and you are so nice to edit this show, which is greatly appreciated by me and Wibo. You definitely add.
You guys make it easy for me to do, so I appreciate
thank you.
Guys.
Well, I love the fact because I love interviewing people. I love talking to these interesting people, but you add that extra level to it. Like as Spinal Tap would say, you make it 11. It goes to 11.
Nice. Thank you. Well, I mean, you know, you got when you're doing this kind of stuff, it's got to stand out too. There's so much right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of the pandemic, and even before that, everyone was starting podcasts and YouTube shows and things like that. So you had to do a little extra to make them stand out. You know, make it pop a little more.
And I think it does because I watch a lot of different shows on YouTube, and it's basically just two guys talking back and forth. And after a while, I sort of lose interest. But with what you add to it, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see what's next. I can't wait. And I did the show and I still want to see what's happening. So let's talk about how you and I got together. I also host a show called Nutmeg Chatter on several radio stations in Connecticut, the main station being WAPJ in Torrington. You were the last interview before the pandemic hit. I think it was maybe late February, early March. You were the last interview that I could have in the studio.
Yeah, we recorded it in February, like the last week or so of February, and it went up in early March, I think, right? Yeah. But it was like, it was literally, I remember like we did the show, the morning host woman wanted me on as well afterwards because I had that screening coming up at the end of the month, and she wanted me on the week of
Darcy,
yes. She wanted me on the week of the screening, and I got home and she's like, yeah, I'll email you in a couple days, and a couple days later she's like, yeah, this isn't happening. I was like, no one's coming into the studio. I get it. Because it was like maybe within a week that the state started shutting down. I think it was like within a week. And how did you and Wibo hook up? How did you guys hook up?
I was on his show. He has a show, public access show in Litchfield called City Views.
Yep.
Somebody reached out to me and said, Rich, do you want to promote your book? I'm like, you can stop at the word promote. I'm there. I don't care what I have to promote. I will be there. And he and I became friends, and we started working together because he had a show on WAPJ, and it was called the Local Artist Show. And he had this idea. He wanted to do it on YouTube, and he goes, Rich, you want to be a co-host? Never, I think John, I don't like to say no. It's just there's so many. Yeah. So he and I we started this show probably about a month ago or so, and it's been going very well. Met a lot of great and interesting people. And John, I know you earlier today sent me some names of people that would be great for the show, so I do appreciate that. Because Wibo and I always talk about there's so much local talent out there that nobody even knows of. And I want to, especially now, I interviewed Ted Neely from Jesus Christ Superstar. I had compliments from the Netherlands. So it's a worldwide show. I mean, with the web, it's not just, all right, like when I was in radio, it's like, all right, well, maybe they can hear me in the next town over. Maybe they can hear me in Springfield if I'm lucky, if the wind's blowing the right way.
Right, that's how Wibo will be with cable access too. You can only get so far. Yeah. But you can share that onto YouTube as well, then the whole world can see it.
Yeah. So you and I, you were on my show talking about Elmwood Productions, which we're going to talk about. It's a great company. You make movies with puppets, not only horror movies. You make comedies. It's great.
Comedy is like our bread and butter. Horror is our next favorite thing. And that kind of the horror movies will put us on the map internationally, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. So what's more popular with your audience, the horror or the family-friendly comedies?
Oh, the R-rated comedies.
All right.
That's PG-13, the PG-13 R-rated comedies are more popular as a whole with our crew, like Steve the Vampire and the Risley Brothers, and then leaning into the R with like Jungle Man or the family-friendly one, Animal Behavior. Mike Finland, who plays Ripper in it, I play Tugger. We actually recorded a commentary this morning, which will be on YouTube. By the time this comes up, it'll already be on YouTube on Wednesday for the whole series for the 20th anniversary. And we were just talking about how like It's our only super family friendly thing we've ever done, is that those 12 episodes of that show. 13. And it's also one of those shows that we've had the most requests though to do more with. So it's like we've done some stuff that people are just like, oh, that was cool, thanks, bye. And then we've done like Josh and Todd or Head or Animal Behavior. People always like, are you going to do more? Or Steve the Vampire. People always ask us about it. So, and Steve's a comedy. It's a PG-13 comedy. It sounds like a horror thing, but it's really more of a comedy.
Let's talk about Steve the Vampire, because I love that character, because I grew up watching Elvira, Joe Bob Briggs, and if people who don't know who they are, they're hosts and they make fun of the movies that they love. They're making
you're talking about Graveyard Gill.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Graveyard Gill. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Graveyard Gill. So I love that character because it's sort of that type of vein. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I wanted to talk about. You and I realized when we were doing the interview, we have the same taste in movies and other things. So that's why you and I started this whole YouTube channel when the pandemic hit. So we took advantage of the pandemic and we haven't stopped. So
no.
I want to talk about
Christmas break was about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And even then you're like, Rich, all right, I'll get one more episode up for you, I promise. That was like the 4-hour episode of the Twilight Zone. You're like, all right.
Oh, that's right. No. That edit killed me.
I know.
That was the one that broke me, man. Like I was just, because you know what it is? I love the Twilight Zone. I love the show. I want to hear all about Gene Roddenberry. And it was just like, does it ever end? You know? There's this guy, I don't remember his name now. He's very sweet.
Mark Dwidziak.
Yeah, he just was like, does he ever stop talking?
No, he doesn't.
Start talking about like, well, Gene Roddenberry did this, but then he'd turn it into something like, I know we're all going to go on tangents, is what it is, but it would go on forever. That's why he had 4 hours, because he just
I know.
The the Hogan's Hero guy.
Oh, Bob Crane.
The Bob Crane episode, that one had to be so long. And that one was like, for me, as somebody who doesn't know anything about Bob Crane, while editing it, I kept stopping and like researching more about Bob Crane, because they were so interesting. I mean, not that Wiziak wasn't interesting, but it was just, they stayed like on Crane the whole time. His career, his life. And I learned so much in that one. So it's fun to edit that one.
I know. That's what I love too, because like just for me, interviewing these people, I learned a lot about Bob Crane, a lot about the Twilight Zone and everything else Mark had to talk about, because he wrote books on so many different subjects. But if you want to check it out, we won't even talk about that. Just check out the Claws Corner on my channel, Rich Sear, edited by the one and only Jon Bristol. He definitely adds a lot to it. I want to talk about you though, because Elmwood Productions.
Do we have to?
I mentioned you're celebrating your 20th anniversary.
We are. We are in the midst of our 20th anniversary. Mike and I were saying this morning. Mike, I wish he was here now. It'd be funny to have him here. But we always say our 20th anniversary starts and ends in February. So we go from February to February as opposed to January to December. We do, because we really became Elmwood Productions in a February. So we start then. And all year we're trying to do these little like celebrations. You know, with the pandemic, it's tougher. You can't really go out and do a lot of screenings or events. So we've been doing something every month. On the 20th of the month, we put something on YouTube. Or trying to do something. So far, that's what we've been doing. So we did, it started in January, really, because we did Head premiered on YouTube in January with ads. Then we did an event with the Connecticut Guild of Puppetry for Animal Behavior, a screening with them. That was an invite type thing to join the guild or join their Zoom conversation to do it, which was fun. Then February, we did the 10th anniversary of our film Josh and Todd, which was the first ever feature film we did. So that was really fun to do, like a new commentary with the actor who played Josh, who's actually like an internationally known artist. And he only made one movie in his life, and it was this with us. And so him and I, we've been friends. You know, we were friends before the movie, and we were still very, very good friends. So he came. We should get him on this show when he gets back. He's in the Caribbean right now doing a job. But he was like, yeah, let's just do it. It was his idea, and I'm like, we should do this every month, but with a different show or movie. Yeah. And we had a blast, because him and I hadn't talked about Josh and Todd in like 4 or 5 years, because our lives are totally different worlds now from when that movie was made. And so just sitting there that night via Zoom, watching the movie with him and just cracking up, because it's like, remember when that happened? But yeah, it's 20 years. I'm really happy. Elmwood is here 20 years later. We're still going. And
wow, that's good.
I've only lost a little bit more hair.
Look at me, John. Look at me.
There we go. Ball is beautiful, baby.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this is looking pretty good too. I'm sorry to say.
You're getting there though, man. It's going back.
All right.
Lean forward too much, we're making some glare, Rich.
Exactly. That's why I always lean back like this.
There you go.
Lean on me.
So how did you get your start in puppetry? I'm sure we'll go back to Jim Henson. Was that your major influence? Yeah.
I was born in the mid-'70s, so I'm of that original Sesame Street generation. You know, I was 2 years old when the Muppet Show started in '77.
That show.
And it was, you know, this is when there was only there were 4 channels on your local TV. You had your 3 networks and PBS. So to me, it was like, oh, I saw Sesame Street 5 days a week and the Muppet Show was on Sundays, you know? So that was my introduction to what puppetry was. And you had your Captain Kangaroos and you had, and then puppet shows in schools and things like that, which they did a lot more of, I'm sure, back then than they do now even. And I just really was really attracted to what a puppet was. I remember getting in trouble in kindergarten because I told other kids that the Muppets weren't real. I was already aware that they were made by somebody and they were. My teacher was mad. You know, she was mad because I'm making the kids cry. She wasn't like mad at me. Like, she couldn't be mad at me. I wasn't lying to these kids, but like I was breaking the illusion. And I was like, you didn't figure that out already?
You know? Also tell them Santa Claus didn't exist.
No, I knew better. I have a whole story about that though, for another day.
All right, we have to have a part 2,
right? About how I found out. We'll do a Christmas special.
Oh.
And but like, so I just really loved the form. And then as I got older and got into art and got into comics and got into like really into films and movies, it was really like I look at the 80s films that I grew up watching, 70s and 80s films, and you forget how many of these movies had puppets, you know, and you think about it, like all the Star Wars movies had puppets. You know, the Muppet movies, the Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, you know, every fantasy film in the 70s and 80s was puppets. Like even the first Jurassic Park was mostly puppets, you know, and we just don't think about that. Yoda was a puppet, you know, Gremlins are puppets, you know, Critters were puppets, like Chucky was a puppet, you know, it's like, I just really, really enjoyed that you could do anything with a puppet and get away with it too. That was definitely part of it.
Well, you brought up a great point because there's a movie I didn't get a chance to see yet. It played for 1 week in Stanford. It's called Street Gang, How We Got to Sesame Street.
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh, you did?
I actually did the Indiegogo for it and all that. I saw it 2 weeks ago on a Friday night. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that one because it didn't, but I did watch. It's called let's see, How I Got. Wait, let's see, 50 Years of Sunny Days. The big Sesame Street.
Oh yeah.
50 years. So I was watching that, and the reason I brought that up is because you brought a great point. They did so many things with puppets that normal people would get mad at if they were doing like a regular sitcom or something. But people were like, "Oh, it's a puppet! Look how cute it is." Yep. But what I got mad was like I did not realize maybe at the time because they used to have I was in 3rd grade when we used to go in the classroom, watch Sesame Street, all the 3rd grade classes. And I never realized like how deep they would get into some issues. Like example, when Mr. Hooper died, they talked about it with Big Bird and they talked about death.
Yeah.
And I was laughing because it was in the 90s when AIDS was prevalent, and it still is, but I mean, like it was really big, it was brand new. And this puppet was talking about how she was born with AIDS because her mother had AIDS. And in Africa, they loved it. They said, "Oh man, we learned so much from it." America, like you had these right-wing people like Jerry Falwell and Bill Wright.
Yeah,
oh my
God! In America, the character was never even part of the show. It was specific to Africa because of how big of an epidemic it is there, and still is there, really. You know, like so. Yeah, so the fact it didn't even need to make the press in America, but because some people just want to hate for the sake to hate. Unfortunately, they're going to find a way to hate anything that goes against their. And I'm going to get in trouble for this, and I don't care, but they're going to go against anything that goes against their superior white agenda.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%.
That's the guy like Jerry Falwell, superior white agenda, you know? Yeah. The little bug just flew across my head. Sure, but like, and I might get in trouble for saying that, but it's true. And I'm not of a superior white agenda, you know? I mean,
neither am I. And Wibo, I don't think you are either.
No.
But so, and that's what kills me is like these people made press out of this stupid, they made it a stupid thing in the press to get themselves views on TV and get their racist, their racist and fearful agenda out there, and they use Sesame Street as their way to do it, and that's kind of pitiful and disgusting. You know?
Because I saw the clips and it was thoughtful. They put a lot of thought into what they were going to talk about, how they did it, how they addressed the issue was great. It didn't talk down to kids. It wasn't condescending, but you learned a lot and it was great.
Anything and everything Sesame Workshop does is so well researched before it even goes public. You know, like I don't know how long they were working on that before it hit the television originally in Africa even. But I guarantee you, it wasn't like, oh, let's do this, and 2 weeks later they had it. It was a year in the works, I'm sure. You know?
Well, there's another thing you probably remember, but they were saying that a lot of people didn't see it was Snuffleupagus' parents got divorced.
Well, they never aired the episode.
Yeah,
the episode actually never aired. Yeah, they did it. They test every episode before it hits TV too.
Yeah,
they tested it and they realized they didn't do it right. You know, and that's smart. Okay, they did spend. I mean, a show like Sesame Street is a very expensive show to produce. You know, and especially for public television. And but so they scrapped all those parts of the episode and shot new things because it didn't work out. Later on, they did have more recently a divorced family in the show.
Right.
Having Snuffy's parents get divorced didn't just it never aired.
Yeah, no, I saw the clip of it.
There's clips of that. Some of the documentaries they'll show clips, but the episode itself never actually aired. They talk about Street Gang. Yeah.
Yeah, well, just like you, Jim Henson originally didn't want to work with puppets. From what I heard, like he wanted to, and I'm laughing because I know your history. I want you to tell my viewers. Originally, you didn't want to make movies with puppets either. Why was that?
No. Well, like it's Jim Henson wanted to be on television. He saw puppets his way in. That was you know, his local TV station. He wanted to be on TV. He thought his local TV station was looking for puppeteers, so he made puppets and went, and it took over his whole career, and he did enjoy it. He loved it. That's why he kept doing it. He could have dropped it at any time, but he didn't. And me, I was doing a lot of comic art, and I love comic books. I still, I don't really read them anymore. And I'm just busy making my own art and things like that. But I wanted to take one of the comics me and some of my friends were coming up with and turn it into a movie. And big puppet fan. I already made a few puppets for fun, things like that, but nothing major, nothing good. And we were going to take these comics and make these like short films out of them, but none of us were actors. And they were based on us, but none of us were good looking enough to be on camera. That was our big joke. We're too ugly to be on camera. And we were watching, it was around Christmas time, and we were watching Muppet Christmas Carols like a group. And I looked at one of my buddies and I'm like, why don't we take that comic and do it with puppets? How hard can it be?
And the answer is that very hard.
Famous last words, how hard can it be? And then I spent 3 or 4 years really learning how to you get the basics of the kind of puppetry I do before showing a puppet film to anybody,
What did you do you said you just started making your own puppets?
That was 97 that we had that conversation. And Elmwood Productions officially was 2001. So yeah, and in 2000 I started having puppets really being built that I was comfortable with, like showing my friends and things like that. But we didn't start filming it until 2001, and none of that is available anywhere online because it's embarrassing.
You got to start somewhere. So, yeah. But how did you learn to make puppets? Did you just say one day, all right, let me get some felt, let me get some glue?
Yep.
All right, I have Steve the Vampire. Really?
I you go to the library, you go to the local bookstore, you buy books, which is I got a couple books on it. There's just one great book that was available in the early days of the internet that you could mail order from the two guys who wrote it. Gray Seal Puppets is the company. And it was about foam puppet making. There were no other books about it. So I remember printing out the order form at my friend's house because it was 97. He was the only friend of the internet, filling it out, and the book came 6 weeks later or whatever, then going out, buying the materials. And then from there, really, reverse engineering some toys, reverse engineering some dolls that were puppets, and trying to figure it out from there. Almost all self-taught. I've taken workshops now over the years and things like that, but originally up through 2004, when I built the first Steve the Vampire puppet, I was completely self-taught.
And you actually teach classes too on how to build puppets? Occasionally,
yeah. Pandemic obviously stopped that. I do workshops, simple puppets, because if you go too big, it turns in from a 4-hour workshop to a 6-week workshop.
And most people, you don't want to see that long.
No,
4 hours is good enough for me.
I understand. But yeah, but once the pandemic ends, I'll probably do that again for people who are interested. I didn't do any online. A lot of people were like, oh, you should do it online. I was just like, everyone else is right now. That was the thing. And other people are better at it than me. Let them do it,
They're just taking away precious airtime from me and Wibo.
That's right.
Yeah.
I got to tell you a funny story about the Muppets, because my brothers and I were huge fans watching, the Muppet Show, and they used to have this thing called Pigs in Space.
Yes.
Pigs in Space. My brother, he says, all right, I'm going to write. There was a writing contest. He came in second place, and his story was Turkeys in Space. It was exactly word for word the episode that was on Monday night at 8 p.m. And even my brother said, "Doesn't anybody watch the Muppets?" They had no idea. He came in second place for Turkeys in Space.
Plagiarized the Muppets.
I guess if you're gonna plagiarize somebody, aim for the top, and he did.
Yeah, go for the best.
But what's so great is the Muppet Show and Sesame Street. It became where it was like the in thing to be on that show. All these great guests, Stevie Wonder, and other people.
Sesame Street is still a cultural phenomenon like that, where every major celebrity still wants to be on it because you're there forever once you've done it.
Yeah.
Sesame Street reruns everything. They rerun bits. They have DVD. They have their YouTube channel. So if you're Paul Simon, you did Sesame Street in 1975, kids are still watching that now.
Yeah.
The Muppet Show was the most watched television show in history.
Wow.
For one while. It was the first Western show shown in Russia.
Wow.
This was so to be on the Muppet Show was internationally huge. Sesame Street was just America forever, but the Muppet Show blew up, and that's really cool for any guest star. That's why you watch the first season, there's so many British guest stars because the show was made in England.
Oh.
But they were not famous over here compared to over there, but because they were in England, no one wanted to be on the Muppet Show that first season because it was the Muppet Show. And then it blew up, and now Paul Simon wanted to be on it, Sylvester Stallone wanted to be on it, Christopher Reeve wanted. You had all these A-list stars of the 70s and 80s who were lining up.
I think one of my favorite guest stars for that show is Buddy Rich versus Animal, the drum.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah.
Drum war. I love that.
They did it. The Muppets came back in 2015 with a new series just called The Muppets. About a late night talk show. Miss Piggy was hosting one. And they do a reenactment of that drum battle, but with Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
I like him.
It was kind of cool. They threw back to that. I was like, all right, that's cool.
I want to get your opinion on this because I think it's stupid, but now that Disney bought out the Muppets, they have to put a disclaimer on there. I think let me give you my opinion, but then I want your opinion. It's a children's show, and I love the Muppets for the same reason I love South Park. When you're watching a show, kids are laughing at it for one reason, adults are laughing at it for another reason. Not everybody is looking so deep into it where they have to say, "Oh, this is how people used to act in the '80s." We're not like that now.
You know what? My thought process is when you watch any television show now that's on TV, there is a little thing in the corner, a little rating, whatever it is, TVG, TVMA, TV, and if the Muppet Show came on this now and it was new, it would have that as well.
Yeah.
Now, the episode has it, there is some, by modern terms, racially insensitive things. Nothing racist, just kind of bad jokes, just some bad jokes. And that's really, and there's smoking, things you wouldn't do now, and drinking that you wouldn't do now necessarily in a kid's show. Muppet Show was never a kid's show that was aimed at adults, and kids watched it because it was on early enough and their parents let them.
It's true.
I think people forget that. And Disney Plus didn't forget that, and putting that rating on it, I think, is almost, putting that disclaimer is almost intelligent. South Park has a disclaimer.
I know, but that's why I was saying. That's why I brought up South Park, because that's another show.
I don't think it's stupid. I think it's very. It's unfortunate that now people's sense of humor is. There's too many warriors for everything.
Keyboard warriors who.
It goes back to the Jerry Falwells where we were calling earlier. A guy like that could turn around and be like, oh, well, they did this religious thing in an old episode of the Muppet Show, and I didn't know in advance, so I'm offended, so it's easier to put a disclaimer on it and let people get mad about it for 20 minutes because most people have forgotten now.
I know. Well, I agree with you.
As a buddy of mine said, when that hit the news, it was a slow news week, or they're trying to distract us from something way more important.
I agree with that 1,000%.
Yeah.
And it also makes the show more popular because people want, like, similar to Tipper Gore in the 80s with the PMRC.
Yeah.
You put a label on it. I think every band after a while said, put a label on my record. I want the notoriety.
Yeah, and people that might not have watched the Muppet Show on Disney Plus went back and go, why would they? I gotta find out now. And then they started watching the show again, which is cool.
But then it goes back to even the Sesame Street with the whole controversy with Bert and Ernie. They're Muppets, because they're two Muppets. They're not human beings, and who cares what?
Here's my stance on the Bert and Ernie thing. One, they don't exist from the waist down.
Exactly.
Two, how many people in the 70s, 80s, 90s now in New York City live with a roommate?
Exactly.
That's normal.
I know.
3, if you're a gay person and you watch Bert and Ernie and you relate to them as a gay couple, that's awesome. If you're a straight person and you relate to Bert and Ernie as two buddies who drive each other crazy, that's awesome too. Let it be what it is for you, you know? For me, they're just, because I grew up with thinking of them as just roommates, because that was just, I don't know. What do you think, Wibo? What do you, I mean, roommates, you know, like.
Wibo, the world wants to know what you think.
Roommates.
Roommate, yeah. Like, that's just how we think of it, because we're
roommates.
We're straight.
I never even thought anything about that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Teletubbies maybe. No, I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? It's like I never.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It's so stupid to even make that an issue.
Yeah, you know, in Sesame Street, you know, at some point we'll have the openly gay character. They're probably, I'm sure they're trying to figure that out. How do we come up with an openly gay Muppet?
Yeah, and
that's fine, because if you watch the Muppets, there are clearly gay characters in the Muppets.
Right.
But Frank Oz has always said that Miss Piggy is a linebacker in drag. You know? So it's like there's that give and take of how you portray a part, you know.
Yeah, and I love the fact he's still doing it, isn't he?
No,
Frank Oz? He's not. Okay,
no, he retired in early 2000s.
Okay,
he's still movies, but he's not puppeteering for the Muppets or Sesame Street anymore. Yeah,
he's still working with Star Wars. The new
he's still Yoda.
Okay, yeah, that's all right.
Well, when they use Yoda, he's still Yoda.
Yeah. So we're having this whole conversation about the Muppets because that was a huge inspiration to you, and you started making movies because you were too ugly for the film. And how did you get puppeteers? Did you get your friends together and say, let's do this, or did you actually audition people?
Blackmailed people. Originally, I had like these couple of really, really close friends who were interested in it as well. We, you know, one of my friends, Pete Luco, who's been with Elmwood Productions from day one, he was like, the day you said we're doing this, I was in for the ride. And he's like, and even if I didn't want to do it, I was like, well, I got to try it at least, because we have that kind of friendship. He was in the car, so I was in the car. So he was into a certain type of music, I'm into that music, and I'm into this type of music. We've always been that kind of friendship where we help each other out and we get each other into things. And so he was like, I'm in if you're in. Let's give it a shot. And if he didn't like it, he could leave. And that was the joke. If you don't want to do it anymore, just go. And 20 years later, he's still here with me as one of my main partners. And it's not just
20 years, huh?
What was that?
20 years, huh?
20 years, dude. I've been friends with him for 36.
Wow.
Known each other since we were 10. Yeah. So so originally I was just asking my friends, hey, do you want to come help us out with this project? Do you want to help us out with this movie? And then other people would be like, oh, well, you're doing that? How can I help? And it was great. The only time we've auditioned twice, like done open auditions in the public twice. One was for Josh and Todd, because it was a feature film. We were using actors, because it's half actors, half puppets. And we didn't have actors. We had always puppeteers, but we didn't have actors. And the second time was for Head, because originally Head was going to be with actors and not puppets. And when we decided to go the puppet route instead, we asked some of those actors we auditioned, hey, would you want to be a puppeteer? And a couple of them were like, oh, hell yeah. You know? Auditioned in the first place, hoping at some point I could puppeteer too. So it worked out great.
I think it's probably better to do it that way, because you don't have to deal with egos as much, because you know the person, you get along, and you're in sync and you work together well, instead of bringing somebody from the outside. Well, this is how I do it. It's like, well,
yeah, and you know, I mean, actors, I would want that, because we don't deal with actors a lot, you know. But with puppeteers, I'm grateful that the people that we brought in either were very green and wanted to learn, or knew enough that we didn't have to overly train. So we you know, it's a give and take, but it's been good. That's how we get people, though. We just ask our friends, or our friends ask us, or somebody hears about us and was like, oh my God, how do I get in? I get emails all the time. Hey, are you hiring? Hey, are you this or that? It's like, when we have a project, and try to cast from within first, you know.
So what was the first thing you did with, I know you mentioned one that wasn't, we'll never see the light of day. What was the first? Was it Josh and Todd was the first that was released?
The first thing that really kind of got attention was Steve the Vampire. That was the first episode. The first 4 episodes really did pretty well for us, bouncing around at different like little events to screen and things like that. Then they hit YouTube, and then we kept filming them. And then the next big project we did while filming Steve, we shot episodes of Steve over the course of 6 years. And as we came up with them, we didn't have a series in mind. It was just, oh, do this episode. Oh, it's a new idea for Steve. Like, what can we have this little kid vampire do now? You know, like what? And during that, we made Josh and Todd as well, which was actually in progress originally before we made Steve. We wrote it, and then we just never made it. We couldn't get the right cast. The puppets didn't look right. Put on hold, and then finally we broke down. I was like, it's time. And so Josh and Todd really was the first thing that kind of got us more national attention, though. You know, because it was a feature film, and people were more interested in that than 5-minute web shows at that point.
What'd you do with that? Did you rent out theaters or send it to festivals?
Josh and Todd, I was involved with an art gallery in Southington called Paris and Plantsville. I was a resident artist there, and we did the premiere there. That was the first screening. We did a weekend of premieres there, and the local press jumped on it. We did not expect that. We didn't even put out press releases. We just knew that our friends wanted to come see it. Our family wanted to come see it. We'll just sell tickets and we'll see what happens. And next thing you know, that we had articles in a couple different local papers, and we got the current contacted us after the fact. They had their dates wrong, but they've covered us for Animal Behavior. They've covered us for Head. They've covered us for Risley Brothers Science, which is great. I appreciate this. The big state paper actually doing stuff on us. But Josh and Todd, from there, kind of, we just did other screenings in other venues. We did Buttonwood Tree a couple of years later, and Middletown. We've done it at Connecticut. We've screened it at Connecticut. We've bounced around it differently. Anywhere that would let us set up our gear and show the movie, we would do it just for fun. And the same thing happened with Steve the Vampire. Once that was completed, we did the same thing at the gallery. We had this big opening, and that was unbelievably huge. And then we just, anywhere we could go. I remember with Josh and Todd, we were even burning DVDs of it and literally just giving them away to people. Just burn DVD. Here, have a Josh and Todd DVD, just so people could see the movie out there.
I love that, the do-it-yourself way.
Oh yeah.
And that's the best way that, word of mouth is the best publicity. Best
we released
promotion.
it in 2011, and in 2015, I had found somebody had ripped it to YouTube. And I got bootlegged. Somebody in like Ohio or Utah or something had bootlegged our movie onto YouTube, and we were going to put it on YouTube for free that year. So I contacted the guy, and I'm like, dude, you got to take it down because we're putting it up. And he was like, I only put it up because no one knew about this movie. And he was like, don't sue me. I'm like, no, man, I'm flattered. And he's like, no, take it down. I'm like, thanks. Like, he was so nice about it. I think we sent him a free Head DVD or something.
All right, that's good. Well, let's talk about Head, because
Okay.
I love that, because you and I were discussing earlier, so we have the same taste in horror movies, and that is goes back to the old 80s horror movies such as Evil Dead. I'd say it's very similar to Evil Dead, where it has the first one's a little bit more serious. The second one had a little bit more comedy or a comedic element to it. But I think it's like, I love the fact, because I love the old 80s horror movies like Friday the 13th, Evil Dead, where you get a bunch of kids, the teenagers going to the woods.
That's exactly what
What
we
could
were going
possibly
for.
go wrong?
That's exactly what we were going for. When I wrote it, they didn't originally write it for puppets. We wanted to, early on in the years of Elmwood, I'll say, I think it was 4 or 5 years, in 2006, so it was 4 or 5 years in, I pitched to the crew that I wanted to make a horror. I'd watched Evil Dead 2 one night. I came home from work, had a rough week, bottle of whiskey, 6-pack of beer, and a pizza.
Wow.
And just was like, I'm gonna watch Evil Dead 2. I just had this mood. All my friends were like, let's go out, it's Friday night. I'm like, no, you guys have fun. I was getting divorced. I just wanted to sit at home and just and I wanted to watch. I was gonna watch Evil Dead and I couldn't find it, so I put in Evil Dead 2. And when it was over, I'm like, how come we haven't tried this yet? Because it's not an expensive movie, either of them. It's not. So I was like, why don't? And then I pitched it the following week, and it was like, yeah, let's make a horror movie. And another kid that was working with us had an idea. We ended up not making that movie after a few years, so it just development and all that. But I went back to it in 2010, the idea of doing a horror movie, and in the course of like 3 weeks, I wrote the first draft. I think I wrote most of the first draft in 2 nights, and then wrapped it up over the next couple of weeks. And it was still just going to be actors. And then from 2010 to 2014, we kept trying and trying. Anytime we'd have downtime between the project, because we did a bunch of other stuff, went back to Head. And the whole point was to make a movie like those movies, like fast, easy, cheap, teens in the woods, disturb something, act like idiots, have sex, do drugs, and get killed. It was never meant to be a deep movie by any means.
Those are the most fun movies. I love them. Just sit back. The movie is supposed to be escapism. That's
it's exactly that movie is purest. There's no message in Head.
Yeah.
Todd has a message of be yourself and be true to yourself.
Yeah.
animal behavior is family first. You know, Risley Brothers is camaraderie and friendship is important. Everything kind of has a little bit of a message that we build in. But Head was just pure, let's have fun. All the horror stuff we kind of do doesn't really have a message other than entertainment. And I'm good with that. I'm good.
Did you come up with the idea? Did you write it?
Oh yeah. I was the primary writer on it. There's two other credited writers, Joe Calvo and Brian Woodman. Joe was an actor in Steve the Vampire. He plays the vampire hunter.
Okay.
Josh and Todd, he's a cameo in Josh and Todd. And Brian was this other local writer and journalist who kept pitching, like, I want to write movies for you guys. I'm like, I don't need more writers. You know? But we weren't doing Head. We decided we're not going to do it. Joe really, he was like my sounding board during those 3 weeks of writing it. He'd come over, read what I was written, give me notes, and he helped me write a few scenes, so he got a writer credit. And Brian, I threw it to him when we were done, because I'm like, we decided we're not going to make the movie right now. I was like, we're not doing it. It's too much stuff going on. Here, see what you can do with this. And he gave me a draft back. He really earned his draft. In the end, I think we used like 3 lines of his, but I'm the type of guy that we used it, you're going to get credit. You know, I'm not a jerk, so we gave him a credit. And he did. I mean, the lines he used were good. You know, so I mean, that's why we used them. But it was mostly me, and it was mostly me just trying to hit those beats, those cliches. And if you watch it, it's full of those cliches.
If people want to check it out, I think it's still on YouTube. I watched it recently. You sort of have
Kings
the
of
making,
Horror.
the evolution of Head.
Yeah, Kings of Horror. It's on the Kings of Horror YouTube channel, which it's on Elmwood Productions YouTube. It's also on our Head playlist and the Great Guild playlist, so it's there. And you can also you can rent it on Amazon Prime. It's on Tubi TV for free as well. It's on a bunch of different apps. Our website has it all.
How did you get that movie on all these different sites?
We sold it. A distributor came. We did the film festivals. We did put that one into film festivals. One of the producers in the film, this guy Chris, he decided that he thought it was good enough for Fest, which blew us away. He was like, "I'm gonna get it out there." And he submitted it to a dozen or so festivals, and we got into, I think, all of them, all over the world. And then we started winning awards, and it was like, really, for this movie? Bad year, no shit. And started winning awards, but then no distributor contacted us. Nobody wanted to touch it. We were watching other movies get picked up, and we were like, how come? It's because our movie was like, it's not the kind of movie, you know, it's a puppet movie. You know, you have to want to go see a puppet movie to see a puppet, or somebody to tell you, you got to check this out. No matter how many awards it wins, if you're not interested in puppets, you're not going to go see this movie, you know? And then it was, so we put it out 2015, 16, 17, and then in 2017 or 18, I think it was 17, a distributor finally came to us and they're like, hey, we've been wanting to bug you guys forever about it. Are you interested still? We had 2 at the same time, actually. And it was like, oh, now it's, you know, now you want. And we were just like, it was so over at that point. We're like, yeah, sure, take it. Let's make a deal. And we took there was one deal that was more money. We didn't take that one because they would own it outright forever, and they could do sequels and never reach out to us. They could do it all without us. And then the other deal was with this company called Terror Films, where their whole thing was, we're just licensing it from you guys for 5 years. We'll get it out on all these platforms. We'll split the money, a certain percentage, you know. So that was a better deal for us because we had to keep the actual rights. You know, they have the distribution rights digitally for 5 years, and I'm assuming they're probably going to extend it because it's doing okay, I think. But we could still do screenings, we could still sell DVDs, we could still make sequels. You know, they don't own the rights to all of that. So
Hey, John, similar. You copyright yourself, or somebody done it for you?
Oh, we do it all ourselves. Yeah, it's paperwork and a couple bucks. You know, we do occasionally have a lawyer look over stuff, of course, make sure we're doing things right. But yeah, we have the LLC. We have we have 2 different actual businesses within Elmwood Productions, 2 official legal businesses within it that take care of all that. A lot of it's me. Ricky Passmore was my producer on Head. He directed Risley, he directed Jungle Man. He directed a bunch of stuff, but he's our main editor on a lot of the shows too, and he does some of the legal stuff too.
We talked about our love for the movie Evil Dead. There's actually a puppet named Bruce in that movie.
Yes. And
that would be
when I wrote Head, I wanted to have little references to different horror movies and different people I knew and things like that. And I made there a very Ash-esque character from Evil Dead, the first one, which was kind of a wuss. I made a very Ash-esque character in it, but we named him Bruce, as in Bruce Campbell. And when we were casting, we didn't care. Whoever plays it, plays it. It doesn't have to look like Bruce Campbell. But when you decide to do it with puppets, you can make a Bruce Campbell puppet. And that was what was cool. So the puppet looks like Bruce Campbell.
Yeah. Which is funny because in Ash versus Evil Dead, I think
There's
the
a
last
puppet.
season they had a Bruce puppet.
Telling you, man, they knew about our puppet.
Yeah.
We met the ladies at CT Horror Fest, and we had the puppet with us because we had a booth there one year.
Yeah.
One of them was texting Bruce Campbell pictures of the puppet.
Coincidence?
Ash versus Evil Dead starts, and I'm like, I wonder, you know.
Well, at least it's a small minor victory for yourself. You know it, we know it.
We made Bruce first. We made it Bruce
exactly.
We still have that puppet. Most of those puppets did not survive the movie. They were so covered in blood and everything, they got gross and had to be thrown away. But we still have Bruce somewhere.
Question, because that movie, most of it takes place in the woods. Where do you film all of your movies in Connecticut?
Yeah, we've never filmed anywhere but Connecticut. That one was mostly Bethlehem, a property in Bethlehem.
Now, I know with not most movies, a lot of lower budget movies, they have to film and leave before the cops come because they don't have. And I'm guessing
I've done that. I'm guessing Head we didn't have to do that with because we had permission to be on the property. It was a buddy of ours' dad owned a chunk of land, and one of the guys who worked on the film, Russ, he's one of the main guys from Elmwood for years. You know, he was one who created Shoot the Vampire with me and things like that. His dad owned a chunk of land, and he let us film on it. Funny is that tree with all the heads on it was like 3 yards off his land on somebody else's land, but we didn't know because we were just wandering the property, put all the heads in the tree, covered them in blood, and we left them there for the whole filming. We never took them down. And we got back like 2 weeks later, and my buddy Russ, and he was like, so apparently that's not my dad's property, and the guy who owns it was not upset. He just thought it was like the funniest thing ever. It was like, it's cool, don't worry. Like, so we were like, oh. No, we were like waiting to have to take it down and reshoot, but no, he was like, just it's fine. And now that tree is gone. Apparently, got struck by lightning.
Did you ever have a time where you were filming a movie and the cops drove by and said, "What the hell is going on?"
Yes. When we were making Animal Behavior, we were shooting in downtown Plainville, Connecticut, on train tracks. There's these train tracks that go right down Main Street, and we have this private property right off of it where my buddy Gabe has a carousel restoration shop called WRF Designs. It's where Witches Dungeons Museum is now. That property, we can use that parking lot pretty much whenever we want. We have permission from the guy who owns Gabe, who has WRF Designs, the carousel restoration place. So we park there and we go over to the train tracks, and we know we're trespassing on the train tracks. We know it. It's like 9 o'clock at night. There's no one in downtown Plainville. It's like, we're gonna 10 minutes and we're out of here. And of course, as soon as I lay down and we all get on the ground and the puppets are up and the lights are on, we see a squad car coming up Main Street. We're like, oh, please don't let it see us. And then we all see it turn around. And there's a pizza place there, pulling the pizza place parking lot, which faces the train tracks on the other side, you know? And this cop gets out and she's like, hey, what's going on? And she sees a bunch of grown bearded men with puppets. Because all she saw were the lights and people on train tracks. You know, she didn't realize. And I think she went from worried about teenagers causing trouble to what the heck? Yeah.
That's funny.
And so we get up, we start talking to her, and she's like, oh, this is fine. You know, she wasn't like, she's like, you guys aren't here causing trouble. Just be careful. But another cop pulls up because he sees that she probably did radio and that she was stopping. And this guy gets out of the car. His hand is on his gun. He's ready.
Yeah, really?
He's like, you can't be here. And she's like, I got this under control. He's trying to be
Put the puppet down.
Yeah, exactly. Like we thought he was gonna try and tase us because I'm like standing next to the cop, like chit chatting for fun, like and like because she was so cool. Like the woman officer was so cool, but this guy was just so macho bullshit, you know.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, and then finally she was like, "You need to leave." So I'm guessing maybe she was a step above him or something, and he left. And she was like, "Guys, just wrap it up as quick as you can." She's like, "I have to go from one end of the town to the other and then come back this way. Just be gone when I get back." And we're like. We were. It took us like 5 more minutes and we were out of there. But
his name escapes me, but there's a director and writer. Andy Kaufman was in one of his movies. I'm like, God told me to, or God told him to. Yeah, and the reason I'm bringing his name up, but he had a lot of movies with Fred Williamson, and they were doing shootouts at airports. But they didn't have
New York or in airports. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of the director's name. But
I'd have to look up his name. I guess we can find out later during the editing phase. But I saw a whole documentary on him, and they were saying like nobody knew what was going on. Fred Williamson, who's one of those 70s actors,
he was a football player, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Football player. Then he was an actor. He's one of those guys that I don't know who he is. You see him like, oh, that guy. He's been in a lot of low budget movies, but yeah, he's over there shooting and people are, and it was funny. The director, when we find out his name, but he said, Fred Williams like, everybody's freaking out. He's good. Film them.
Yeah,
They wanted the reaction shots. So it's funny.
We had filmed so much in Plainville. I lived in Plainville for a while. The guy who co-directed Josh and Todd and me, Jim, he lives in Plainville still. He was living in Plainville then. So we would always be like wandering the streets of Plainville with puppets getting shots. And the police usually would just drive by and laugh because it was only 2 or 3 or 5 of us. We weren't ever causing trouble. We still don't. We shot in Plainville 2 weeks ago. You know, like I think they're just, and I live right near Plainville. I think they're just so used to us now that it's just like, oh, it's those guys, you know? We shot in their lockup for Josh and Todd in the police department. There's a scene where the characters get arrested, and we actually shot them an email like, "Hey, can we use your one of your jail cells?" And they said yes. So
I think it's a good thing. Is you're not out at midnight, you know, destroying cars or stealing things.
Right? Yeah, you know, we're not.
So it's a good thing.
We're not drug addicts causing trouble in the streets and playing.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just guys with weird puppets. Yeah.
Now, I know this story, but I want you to tell my viewers. I love this. You filmed something. I'm not sure what movie it was in a rental house in Plainville.
Oh yes. And the woman who was going to come rent it showed up. We made this short film called Christmas Wishes. It's a horror short. It's a Graveyard Gill horror short. A Graveyard Gill host Ted, and he hosts Jungle Man. He hosts, you know, all the horror shorts we do. He's kind of like our Elvira, like we were talking about before, the ghoul. Yeah. We did one about this guy who gets a misdelivered Christmas package of a possessed doll that tries to kill him. And it's all puppets, and we're shooting it, and we need to find a place to shoot because none of us wanted to use our own houses for it. My place had been used for Animal Behavior already. We didn't want to look the same, and so it was like, what are we going to do here? And we found this place on Craigslist. The guy was looking to rent, so we asked him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, you can rent it for a day." I think we gave him like $200 for the morning, something crazy. Not even, maybe it was $80. I don't remember. But he said, just as long as you clean up when you're done, it's cool. The day we get there, he's like, "Hey, how long do you think this is going to be? Because I have a woman coming to look at the place later today." We're like, "Give us like 4 hours." And he's like, "Okay, great. We'll be here by 2 or 1 or whatever it was." And she shows up like 2 hours early. With her kids to see this apartment, this like the house apartment thing. And we're like in this house, and there's blood on the floor. There's bloody puppets. There's a puppet with a knife, this little demon doll with a knife, like stabbing. And the woman just lets herself in. Like the door was closed. Like she just doesn't even wait to find the guy whose house, wait for him to show up. She noise. So she's just, oh, he must be in there cleaning or setting things up. Walks in, sees it, and we all like freeze and like, because this has got to look like a snuff film, you know? And she just started laughing. Like she was like, "What is going on?" And we're like, "Oh, we didn't expect you here so soon." And she's like, "Oh, it's cool." And then the guy comes running because he lived right in front of me, at a house in front of it in the same property. He comes running. "What are you doing here so early? This and that." And she's like, "What are they doing?" He's like, "They're making a movie." She's like, "That's great." Like she was just like, not. But we felt so bad for the kids because I don't know what they thought. I don't know. You know, I don't. But these, and the kids weren't like little. They were like 8, 9. You know, but still, it was like, why are they killing the Muppets?
They didn't kill Kermit, did they, Mommy?
Right.
That's funny. See, at that age, I know the movies that I was watching when I was 8 or 9. I'd be like,
"Yeah,
we're buying this house, Mom. I don't care. I want to live here."
Right.
I
want to see this movie. You know.
Exactly. Oh, I love that story. And you said, where can people find that? It's also on YouTube?
That one's on YouTube. There's on Elmwood Productions YouTube channel. There's a whole Graveyard Gill playlist of all the Graveyard Gill related stuff.
You are Graveyard Gill.
I play Graveyard Gill. Yeah. Yep.
How many puppeteers do you have now?
There's about 10 of us.
10. Okay.
We all multitask. Some of us are also writers. Some are producers. Some of us do like the audio engineering. We all kind of do different things. But it's kind of one of those things. If you show up, you're going to get a puppet put on your hand, even if you don't. You'll be a background character if nothing. And we have some other people. We have like an auxiliary group too that we reach out to when we need extra people. You know, so we try to bring people back that we get along with and things like that.
What is the hardest thing of filming a puppet? Like as you're trying to film this and you're behind watching a monitor, you're filming.
Yeah, you've been there, you've done it. I mean, you got your arm up over your head, you're in an uncomfortable position on the ground, your head has to be like this or like this. You still have to speak. There's like TV down on the ground in front of you that shows you what the camera can see. It's so much. I mean, like if you're, I know Weibo's a musician, and there's so many things you have to do. It just becomes natural, but until it's natural, it's just the hardest, almost awkward thing in the world. And even then, you look at the camera. When I turn my hand to my right, it's left on the screen. Get used to that is complete opposite. Characters will look at each other and chat. The hardest part really is the group shots, I would say, making sure nobody's heads pop in, no arm is sticking out from under the puppet. Like those are the hardest shots. For me personally, the hardest thing is memorizing my lines. I write half the stuff.
Can you have the lines on the floor while you're doing this?
Yeah, always.
Yeah, so
every TV show, every movie, everyone's got their lines everywhere. Like there's no such thing as off book. That's a theater thing,
I think it's funny, going back to Marlon Brando, he cannot remember his lines at all. He would have them on the
Q-tips,
the Q-tip, and on the wall,
like
on a shirt.
Cue cards, yeah.
Cue cards. But somebody would have them like on the person when I couldn't see, they'd have them on the wall in the back. So he would always look. I think, you know what? Hey, whatever. The funniest story is Ian Gillan from Black Sabbath. He could not learn the Ozzy songs. We're talking about music too. Yeah. But so he says, I just can't get it because it doesn't have there's no cohesiveness to it. He goes, it has no story to it. So I said, all right, I'm going to put all the lyrics on the bottom. And he didn't realize that they're going to have the smoke, was it the gas? Like, when the beginning of the concert, dry gas. I guess. Yeah. So he said he couldn't see. So he started pretending like to make it look natural. He started banging his head, going to the ground. Generals gathered in there. Masses. But yeah, whatever gets you through, because I know
whatever.
I've been in plays, and one time I had a line and I just completely forgot where I was, and they're waiting for them. They're waiting for me. And then it just came to me, and I said, "All right, I'm done."
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of theater when I was younger and things like that, and inevitably, I would always forget a line. It is what it is, and I just go with it. Make up or remember it, or same when you're playing an instrument, you forget where you're at, you forget
add on,
go and just power through the best you can.
Sometimes the best lines.
How many people won't even notice sometimes too?
Yeah,
they're so into whatever else is happening, or they've never seen it or heard it, or it's just your interpretation.
No, I always say that too. I said, you're the only one who knows you made a mistake, so just keep on going with whatever you're doing. But sometimes the best lines in movies come from not remembering it, and then you improvise something like, that's even better than what.
Yep.
So
one of my favorite things about the Josh and Todd movie is at the end we have outtakes as the credits are rolling.
Yeah.
That cuts back and forth to us goofing off and screwing up our lines. And one of my favorite ones is one where Eric, who plays Josh, is talking to his soon-to-be ex-girlfriend in the movie, or is it an ex-girlfriend? I don't know. The girlfriend that he's having struggles with throughout the film. And she yells at him and he yells back and he goes, you know what? I don't know my line. And it's just one of those moments where it's just and literally, I remember when we were shooting it, there was a kitchen table next to them. And his notebook of his script was open on the kitchen table. And he turned and they started looking at it. Because it was just out of the shot, you couldn't see it. But if it's there, he's looking at his script now.
That's right. Well, right before the pandemic hit, you were going to have a premiere of Head in Hartford.
Yeah.
Has that been rescheduled?
We were going to do a 5th anniversary screening at CT Improv in Hartford, the Improv Comedy Theater. And it is rescheduled. It will now be in honor of Elmwood's 20th anniversary instead of the 5th anniversary of Head. And it's going to be in October, I think October 2nd. Tickets aren't on sale again yet, but if you are watching this and you have tickets from the previous show, they are valid for the rescheduled date.
I've been there before for several shows. It's a great place.
Great spot, great people. I'm really excited to be screening it there. Yeah. And we're making a new movie now, finally, too, which is nice.
Oh, what's that going to be?
Bernice 2 is the name of it. A little bit about it, Rich. Yeah, it's a sketch comedy film. It's like Saturday Night Live, Amazon Women on the Moon, Kentucky Fried Movie.
Yes.
Those type of movies, but with puppets, of course. And it's going to be PG-13. We decided our first 2 movies we made that were feature films were both R. So we wanted to not tone it down because it's still wacky and weird, but we're not having the F-bombs and things like that. But it's all just skits that have these 2 characters that appear in every skit. Some of them are, completely absurd and wacky. Some of the skits are more subtle and sweet and nice. There's a couple musical moments, which is kind of cool, something we've never really done before. We've done music videos before, so we're using some of that kind of technique in the film too. So it's going to be, it could be an hour, it could be 90 minutes. We're not really sure how it's going to end up, the length, but it's going to be one of our weirdest things we've ever done. And
is Bernice 2
be out in the fall?
People can find that on your YouTube channel.
It won't be on YouTube right away. We're going to do the film festivals and things like that, and we're going to do some screenings. Though we'll have events. We're going to do an online screening the week that it premieres. We're setting that up with a group right now that have a streaming network, so they're going to do an online event for it. But yeah, and we'll be selling the DVDs, all that kind of stuff. But we're going to try and get it into some festivals if we're that happy with it, and then we'll end up on YouTube or somewhere else. Yeah.
You're saying Bernice 2. Was there a Bernice 1, or is that just a play on words?
Yes, there is a Bernice one, but it's completely unrelated. Okay. Bernice is this funny short film that Mike and I from Elmwood made, just to be goofy one day. And it's literally the two of us, mostly him, just running around saying the name Bernice. And it's silly. We're making fun of art films, is what we were doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a scene where the two of us spit water in each other's faces in slow motion. Stupid. It was just us being goofy on like a Wednesday afternoon, and it hit YouTube on our channel. People thought it was hilarious. So when we went to make this, we had a different title for it originally, but we didn't want to call it that anymore. It was somebody's name, and we were just like, it doesn't work anymore. And this guy, Rich, who works with us, was like, why don't we call it Bernice too? As in Bernice as well. Like Bernice. Yeah. Bernice.
T-O-O.
If we call it Bernice, because you already have this other thing called Bernice, it would make no sense that these both things are called Bernice. And I'm like, why don't we call it Bernice too? Because not Bernice part 2, it's Bernice, comma, T-O-O, as if Bernice is also there. Yeah. So Bernice too. And we found a way to work the name Bernice into the film too, which works out great. So
any aspiring puppeteers, because I know how hard it is. I've seen you work, I've seen your other puppeteers work. What is to make the puppet look natural as they're talking? What do you recommend? Because I know you told me has something to do with the thumb.
A lot of it has to do with the thumb, dropping the thumb down. You know, a lot of people want to put a puppet on and just open the mouth as wide as they can all the time. But when you talk, your head doesn't go backwards. You know, your jaw goes down. And your head moves. Like, so you want to have the head go forward as they're saying things, or pull back or turn. And so the key though, step one is getting that thumb used to going down. And some puppets they're not designed to do that easily. So the mouth will go up, but you got the eyes. Make sure the eyes are still looking where they're supposed to look as the mouth goes up. And then you'll never lose that eye contact with whatever, and that realism doesn't break. That's the first lesson to me for this style of puppet, the hand style of puppetry. Yeah.
Did you learn that on your own, doing it in the mirror, or did you?
Yeah, doing it in the mirror, doing it with video cameras, doing it in the mirror, staring at the puppet while talking, watching other puppetry growing up and all that. I kind of put that together, you know. So, and there's so many people now on YouTube who do puppetry tutorials and all that. So it's like,
that's what you and I talked about. That if there's anything you want to learn, just type it in on YouTube and you can find somebody that's going to teach you how to do it. So
I think back to like when I was learning how to build puppets, and I mean, YouTube didn't even exist when I first started in the late 90s, and even into the early 2000s, there was nothing on YouTube for this kind of stuff. And now, I mean, I think it's great because I want more people that do puppetry to be better, because there's so much bad puppetry out there, and it makes everyone look bad, makes everyone think it's cheap. You know, that's with any kind of art, any kind of music. When people are doing it poorly and playing themselves off as professionals, it makes everyone look bad.
Exactly.
So I love the fact that there's these people out there that are trying to show you how to do it better and do it right, so everyone can be elevated to a better level. You know,
well, similar to what you said earlier about making the Claus Corner and the local artist show stand out. It's like with you, you put so much work and so much effort into it, and you can see the difference between that and say somebody just says, "Hi, my name is Rich." So there's a huge difference, and maybe some people might look at like a bad video and say, "I don't want to watch this anymore." But more and more people are like, "You know what? This is nothing like what I saw over there." And obviously, it's working.
It's funny. We had this. I don't remember who it was. It was somebody on Facebook or something. Just messaged me out of the blue, and he was just like, he's a puppeteer as well. And he was like, "Hey man, I stumbled upon your stuff like 4 or 5 years ago, this and that." And he's like, "You guys are legit." And that's how he said, and I'm like, "Well, thanks." You know, like that's a compliment. Like, I'm thinking about all these other people out there and like, you guys are legit. It's like, thanks. That's what we're trying to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're definitely succeeding because Head came out several years ago. You said what it could be, it was the 5th anniversary set.
It'll be
6 years.
It was 6 years in March. It was 5 years last year when we first met. 6 years in March it came out. Yeah.
Now you're working on a sequel,
which is weird.
2 sequels.
There's 2 sequels in the works. Yeah, I'm not giving anything away. We're not really, like as far as the fact that we want to do these things.
Yeah.
They're 2 very different movies, which is kind of the point, that just take place in that world of Head. The second one, part 2, is more of the supernatural thriller. It's still the scarecrow guy trying to kill people, but it gets more into the backstory and things like that. And part 3 is your completely balls to the wall gore fest. That those, we want to make them so different from the first one that you're getting a different experience with each movie, just the same type of or same killer. And Rich, you're going to be helping us out with part 3, which is exciting, because I'm a fan of your writing and we want you to help out. Rick Corbo is another guy that we work with, who's a writer, and he's been a puppeteer, and he wrote an episode of Risley. He wrote Christmas Wishes.
Yeah.
He's a good horror writer too, and he wrote Head 2, and it was, so I know he's still working on a draft. This is next year, maybe the year after. I'm hoping next year we start shooting them.
I know that they're slowly lifting restrictions. Have you started filming again?
Yeah, we were filming. We shot this music video that just came out this past week for a band called Sergeant Scagnetti. The Cultination is the song. We're using some of that footage for Bernice too as well. So we shot privately in a private area for some of it, but even last weekend we were out, or the weekend before we were out in Plainville or Forestville shooting, which was great. And this week we really are going to start hammering down the rest of the schedule. We all got our shots.
Yep. I got my Johnson & Johnson, 1 and done.
Nice.
So I'm happy. Has anybody ever said, John, I want you for one of my kids' parties?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, I don't do that. I looked into it at one point, and the amount of money you make doing kids' parties, you have to make that your living.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have time to do the films. I wouldn't have time to have a day job half the time, because I'd be hustling so hard to do birthday parties every weekend. It's not really what I wanted. I don't really like doing live puppetry anyways. I like doing film. We've done a couple live shows here and there, usually as favors for friends, and they're usually not kid shows. We usually bring one of our things and turn it into a live show or something. We have this one character, Johnny Sojai, with his stand-up comedy. We've had him pop up at like burlesque shows to help host and things like that, which is kind of fun, because he's that kind of, he's like a drunken comedian from the 60s. That's just
love it.
So, and he'll be in Bernice too as well. He's in Josh and Todd. He's actually one of the characters of Josh and Todd. But we don't do a whole lot of live stuff, and the birthday party thing is just, I've heard horror stories from people. Everybody who's a clown, and he's always telling how like half the time he gets there and the show's over and the parents are like, I'm not paying you. Well, we have a contract. And you're like, yeah, I'll give you this much instead. And it's like, it's like
not worth it.
I'd be breaking things.
It's like, I'm not paying for that. I'll pay for this.
Oh, okay, then I'm gonna smash your window. No, I don't do that. But so it's like, because they like all of a sudden the expense is real.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me about. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying actually. So it was never really my interest, anyways, was to really get into the live puppetry thing. So.
I prefer that you stick with films. I love the films you come out with. Tell me about Ask the Doctor.
Oh, Ask the Doctor. Yeah, the Doctor is in. Ask the Doctor, depending on what day of the week it is. Yeah. It's essentially a call-in show, but we don't actually take calls. We have this puppet, the Doctor. He's based on this awesome guy that we call the Doctor in real life. He's like one of my spiritual advisors. And we have this puppet, the Dr. Mike, and he has his assistant Eugene, who's a monster, and his sexy nurse who doesn't have a name. Just the nurse. And he dishes out horrible advice. And what we have people email us questions for the doc. And then we perform the question with a puppet, and then the doc gives the awful voice. Episode 1 is up now. Episode 2 and 3 are shot. We have like a special edition of How to Wear Your Mask Properly that we put up earlier this year. We'll be putting the other ones out pretty soon, I hope, probably in the next month or so. I hope that episode 2 will hit, and then episode 3. And if people want to email Doc questions, it's doc@elmwoodproductions.com. And if we use your question, we send everybody a T-shirt too. You get an Elmwood Productions T-shirt.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
There was last summer You had
We
me
had you
doing
shoot
slow
one.
motion. Whoa.
Yeah.
Did you ever use
Came
that?
over one night and we put a puppet on your hand. Yeah.
First and only time. So
Yeah. For now.
for now, exactly. No, I'm
You
not
guys can
giving
come
up.
down anytime. You
Yeah,
guys can both come down anytime.
I definitely want to do that. Did you ever use that clip? Because I know you were talking about how you were going to use that. I wasn't sure if it came out yet.
It wasn't in the first episode because that I think that's in the second or third. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you'll know.
Okay. Yeah. I will see the update. I'm sure we
Oh,
tag
yeah.
it. Well, we also besides this is why I have so much respect for you, because you're busy writing your own movies, directing your own movies, doing puppets, but you also work a full-time job and you're editing all these other shows. What do you do for fun?
I don't. This is my fun. You know.
Yeah.
I love what I do. I love building the puppets. I love making the movies. It's my friends. It's my family. These guys are my family. And that's really this is my. I mean, I love being outdoors, all that kind of stuff. And I love sitting by a fire. I love going camping. I mean, I do all that too. But when I think of what I'm going to do to have fun today, it's usually creating something or being part of creating something. So. Yeah,
some people might get this reference. It reminds me of the movie Tourist Trap. I don't know if you saw it with Chuck Connors.
Yes. Yeah.
Why don't you like me?
Yeah.
With all the mannequins. But that's you and your puppets.
But what's funny is like people expect to come into my house and see like 1,000 puppets in my house.
Yeah.
I might have one.
Yeah.
I might be working on it that day, so I'm sewing, or I might like right now. I know in my living room I have a puppet of my cat. So I was harassing my cat with it. So it's still in the living room, but it's not like out. It's like in a basket. And I probably should put it away because we're going to use it for animal behavior. But because we're doing a second series of that. And yeah, my house isn't full of puppets. I have a whole studio for that. So I think I have like a Kermit the Frog toy in my living room too, like a puppet.
Yeah.
I'm in my office right now, and I have no puppets in here. I have a foam head from the start of a puppet in here, and that's it.
All your friends locked away.
Yes, they're in big storage bins, and they're safe and quiet.
Well, we talked about how you and I started doing a show called Real Talk. That's another show that we haven't done one in a while. I think that
last one we did was Head.
Last one we did was your movie Head. It was done probably like how many months ago? It was I think
I want to
July.
say August. I know you're saying July, but I feel like it was August or September. Maybe it's because it went up in October.
Maybe. But either way, it's been a while, and I think that so Wibo, I'm going to ask you because we can have viewers when they're watching on YouTube tell us what movies they want us to talk about. For you, what movie would you like John and I to talk about? We also do series. We did the whole Phantasm series. We did all the movie The Things, the prequel, the original, and the John Carpenter version. Is there any movie that you'd love for us to talk about?
Surprise me.
So I like it. I like it. I know you were saying you want to get Nikki on to talk about Jurassic Park. Nikki's one of my puppeteers.
Yeah, she contacted me because she knows that you and I do the show.
Yeah, she's obsessed with that movie.
Yes, and it's funny because I was over your house a couple months in the summer. We were watching Phantasm.
That's right. Halloween.
Yeah, this week she was talking to me about that, and then maybe about a month ago she goes, Rich, I still want to do that. And she has this whole thing where she wants to talk about the movie plus the history of dinosaurs. I mean, yeah, you're right, she's really into it.
Oh yeah,
and I said because she loves our show, Real Talk, and she said
she wants me to do the Jurassic Park one with you, and I started laughing, and she's like, "Wow, I'm like I've seen the movie once."
I know.
I've seen it twice. I've only seen the first two sequels. I'm just not into. I love Spielberg. I thought Jurassic Park was great. I'm just not.
I'm the same way. I think the movie's good, but out of all the Spielberg movies, it's definitely not my favorite. And I've seen it probably one more time than you. But I will do the show, and I'll have to watch it one more time just to get an idea.
I'll come in and introduce it, and then I'll leave and let you guys talk.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
What is Real Talk?
Real Talk is this thing where Rich and I do what we're doing now, essentially, but instead of just free forming about art, we go over the history of a film that we enjoy. We talk about why, and we don't really go into like the depths of all like the of a movie making. We kind of go about why we like it, why we're attracted to it, what we want to see from it, and what we got out of it, which is kind of cool. It's not just your typical. A lot of these like YouTube talk shows that people because they're just kind of like rehashing. Oh, this is my critique of the film. But we're talking about, oh man, my favorite scene was this, and I have an action figure from that scene. Like just nerd out about it a little bit differently. It's fun. And then so like the Thing one was one of my favorites because when the whole thing was done and I was editing it, I found there was another version of the Thing we didn't even talk about. You know, Looney Tunes did a remake.
Oh, do you have a copyright of that?
Sort of. It's it's not registered, but the show is copyrighted. Yeah.
Rich, you like that, Rich?
But it's copyrighted to Rich though. It's copyrighted to Claw's Corner. So.
Exactly.
So I don't own that one. I'm just a co-host.
Oh, okay.
I go to different horror movie conventions. You talked about the Connecticut Horror Fest. I go to Chiller. This Chiller has been gone for the last year and a half. They're starting it back up in October. Richard Mazur is going to be there.
Oh, cool.
I want to talk to him. Who knows? I want to see if I can get him on the show. I'm just going to ask him.
Show. Get him
you
on.
Never know.
Get him on get him on Claw's Corner. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the first interview that I ever did, and this is how Claw's Corner started, was that you and I did an interview with Reggie Bannister from Phantasm, and that started the whole. Yeah. And I've gotten so many great reviews about that.
Was that a Real Talk episode or a Claw's Corner?
Real Talk.
Okay.
That was Real Talk because
that was the third episode, right?
Yep, third episode where we talked about the Phantasm series. We got Reggie, and we're going back and forth. And now I know what's going on because unfortunately he has Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, which I feel so bad about. But yeah. I think we were probably one of the last interviews that he did.
He did.
Because he was just getting, and first I thought he was blowing us off, but then I realized his wife was just protecting him and she was on the show. But it was really, if you want to check it out, it's on my YouTube channel, Real Talk.
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job through the whole interview, though. I mean, he really
did.
But every now and then he just went off somewhere else. And it was, you know what? I think about it when he started like singing to us and all that. I'm like, that was just him going off, but he stayed there. He didn't get up and walk away. He came back, and it's like, oh, that makes so much sense now. What a sweet guy.
He's a great guy. I've met him several times, and it was so great. I mean, to start off the show with the whole series with Reggie was a great honor for me. And I've had people say that, Rich, I love this show. This is like one of my favorite podcasts. It was all from watching that interview.
Nice.
So
I think my favorite episode of Claw's Corner that you've done so far is probably Ted Neely.
Oh yes, Ted Neely plays Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ Superstar the movie.
Yeah.
He is one of the most down-to-earth, nicest, genuine people, and I love the fact that he was so excited to be on the show, and he's so he was wow, I'm amazed. He was just so happy that I did my homework, and he loved the edited version. I talked to him a little bit after it. He was so happy. He was sharing it with everybody.
That's awesome. That one, and I mean, this is your fourth episode of the local artist show, but I loved your guys' interview with Amy Smith.
Great. I never even heard of her. That's Wibo introduced me to her, and I'm so glad he did because she is so multi-talented. Has her her hands in so many different projects, and she's good at all of them.
She's busy.
I've known Amy for years.
Okay.
Through the art world, kind of like probably Wibo met her too through the art community and all that. And she
said you helped her build a puppet. She said.
Did I? Yes, I did. Yes, via the internet, she was building puppets with her for her nephew, I believe, and she kept coming to me for advice. But I knew her before all that. Like that was just I forgot about that. Yeah. But the art gallery at Paris and Plantsville when I used to work when I was a resident artist there and working there, and she was involved in some of the shows there, and then I'd bump into her here and there in different art things, and she's just such a cool person. I totally adore her. She's an inspiration,
Yeah,
what's so infectious about her is her enthusiasm and her dedication, and she just is so excited about everything, is willing to try anything, and it just makes you want to. Like I told her after when the interview was over, I said, I'm going to go out and paint some houses. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Just I was just so inspired.
You just want to give her a big hug and get some of that energy from her.
Yeah,
she's so cool.
Well,
and I just found out that my dad and my mom grew up with her parents.
Oh, really?
Wow. I just found this out, just a small world. Like she was cracking. She's sending me this message. She sent me a picture of my dad in church with her dad. And I'm like, what is this? Like, how is that even possible?
The creative world is, the world in general is very small, but the creative world is even smaller. So many people I run into, it's like, oh, wait, you're friends with this person? And oh, wait, you know him? And it's so funny. Like, it's sort of like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Right.
Where everybody knows everybody from something else. And
6 degrees of Rich and Wibo. Let's play it.
I love it.
Can I get your autograph, John?
Sure.
I don't like autographs. I just want a picture. I don't like autographs. I like to get a picture with people.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, if you look at my Facebook page, well, everybody laughs at me. They're like, Rich, how come you're killing all these celebrities? Because every time a celebrity I meet dies, I put the picture up of me.
Oh, you put there. You've met so many, yeah.
Yes. It's funny.
Don't ever post a picture of me.
I actually worked with one of your creations before I even knew who you were. I do a show called Nerd Talk in New Haven with Kurt Boucher and Lana Peck, and they have a puppet named George. And I didn't find out. Yes, and she does a great job. I don't know if did you ever work with her?
Yes, but unrelated. We did a live show. I was cast in a live show in Torrington of Revenge of the Space Pandas. It's a Dave Mamet play, and they normally do it with guys in panda suits, but they want to do it with puppets instead. So I built all the puppets, and then got roped into playing. There's a sheep. I got roped into puppeteering. The director Keith Paul is a really good friend of mine. He still runs the Sultry Theater Club. They used to have a venue in Torrington. They don't anymore. But he was doing it, and Lana was in it too. And I want to say she was one of the pandas. She was one of the pandas. We didn't really work that closely together. The sheep was like it's such a weird show. It's such a great show. It's such a weird show. It was a live reading, so we all kind of sat in chairs and did the reading with the puppets. And it was a lot of fun, but that's the only time I ever really worked with her. I know there's video of it somewhere, maybe. But yeah, I didn't train her or anything. I remember like the puppeteers that came in were myself and this guy Nick, who worked with Elmwood, and then Lana. And Keith himself, he puppeteered a little bit too. So, but Lana already had kind of a hang of it, so there was no reason to. She had it. She could do it.
Oh, yeah, no, she is hilarious.
Cool, really cool people. Her and Kurt are both really cool people.
Yeah, they actually bought that. Was it an auction?
I have an Etsy page to sell puppets, like for Elmwood Productions. We do commissions and things like that. I do it through Etsy, and Kurt bought it. I had a bunch of older puppets I was unloading just to get some money for the budget for Head, actually. Mm. And Kurt bought that one. I think it was super cheap too. Like if I was to put that exact puppet on Etsy now, I would not sell it for that cheap. Not a great puppet, I'm not gonna lie. It's a good puppet, not like full blown pro quality, but I think he got it for like $25 or something. Mm.
How much for the Bruce puppet?
If I was to sell the Bruce puppet as new, like that's a no matter what, that's like a $2,000 puppet. You know, yeah, it's a piece of art. People forget that, puppets are art. But I know Mike kept Bruce when the show was done. I know he's somewhere in a bin because we're doing some photos with him recently, but it's Mike's puppet. He can keep it. So whatever he wants to do with it. You could offer it. Maybe he'll buy it. Maybe he'll sell it to you. He'll probably
six-pack of credit cards.
Yeah, 6-pack of beer. He'll call it a day.
I love it.
Yeah, Bruce comes back though, so we're gonna need a new Bruce.
Right. Are there any puppets that you haven't made of characters such as Bruce Campbell that you're thinking of for future movies?
We're doing Reggie. Reggie Bannister is gonna be a puppet for one of the Head sequels, like a likeness of him. We're not. We don't go ask permission, so it can't be exactly that person, but we'd like to do inspired by. So we're doing one of him. Karen Allen, the actress, for her, the basis for a character, a younger Karen Allen.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Karen Allen?
Yeah, around that era. Pre-Raiders, yeah. And Raiders, Raiders. And then we made one that we haven't really used yet for anything. I made this puppet, it looked like her, so I made it more like her. Singer named Shirley Manson from the band Garbage.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I know who she is.
I made a puppet that kind of looks like her. And that was just because I started doing it. I'm like, wow, it looks kind of like her. Let's just do that. My buddy Tricky has got this huge crush on her too. So of course I made this puppet and would tease him with it.
No, but what I was going to say, what's funny is I was thinking of that last scene of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 78 version with Donald Sutherland. I said that would be a great puppet, but Dr. Mike already looks like that.
Dr. Mike does kind of look like Donald Sutherland, yeah.
In real movie
too. The real guy kind of has that look too.
Oh yeah, I know he's a great guy.
Oh, that's right. You know the doc.
Oh yeah.
Gosh, yeah.
Yep, he used to work at this bookstore I went to all the time. It was funny because he would do the same thing. He would have all this advice for people, and people.
Oh yeah, that's how I met him. We worked at Borders together. I was there for 5 years with him, and off and on for 5 years. So I moved to Florida and back during that time, and he was literally like our doctor. He would give younger guys. He would sit us down and give us advice about life. He'd seen a lot. He'd been through a lot. Sweet, great guy. You know. I still look to him for advice sometimes. He's just that kind of guy. Adore him.
You ever think of doing the tall man from Phantasm? Something similar.
Because like I could make, if somebody wanted me to make a puppet of him, like commission it or something, I'd probably do it. But I don't know how. I can make a puppet of Angus Scrimm.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that, because he's a character in himself, just the way he looks. But I wouldn't want to do like a tall man puppet. Does that make sense? Yeah,
no, it does.
Angus Scrimm puppet, absolutely, because his face is so unique and expressive. But a tall man himself, no. Just because, unless they wanted to make a Phantasm puppet movie,
Yeah, that would actually be a.
Oscar really needs to reach out, man. Let's Phantasm 6, all puppets. Let's do it.
I'll see if I can reach out to Gigi Bannister, see if she can get in touch with him. So put the money up for it.
Yeah, right.
What about you, Wibo? Who would you like to see as a puppet?
Oh, Rich Sears.
Rich Sears. There you go. Wibo and Rich as puppets. I'm working on a Prince puppet just for myself. I'm a huge Prince fan. I'm working on one of Prince just for myself.
Oh.
What are you gonna do with that? Are you gonna like do music videos with it?
No, just for myself, just for my collection. Because I wouldn't want to do like a copyrighted song music video without permission.
Oh yeah.
Just doing it for like. Sometimes you gotta make it, when you're making art. Any artist knows you write a song, you don't always release it. Sometimes it's just for you. Or you're making, you make a painting. It might not be for the public consumption. Sketch or drawing. This one, I mean, I'll put photos of it out there. Maybe I'll do like a fun little video of it doing something. Maybe using the background of something, but it's just for me to do.
Somebody might want to buy it.
What was that?
Somebody might want to buy it.
Somebody might want to buy it too at some point. Yeah, I wouldn't be offended to sell it unless somebody get really attached to it, which I usually don't. We have an Axl Rose puppet somewhere.
Yeah. Well, there's if anybody watches the show Real Talk, that's REEL for movies. Real Talk.
Real.
We always go back to one filmmaker, and that's Kevin Smith. Did you ever think of a Kevin Smith? Yes.
I thought about making a Jay and Silent Bob puppet at one point just to do it because I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan too. But I've seen so many people do it now that it's like, nah, I don't need to do it. Maybe someday, maybe not. I've seen so many people do it, and some good puppet makers do it. They're just doing it for themselves too. I'd almost rather make like Brody.
Yes. From Mallrats. Mallrats, yep.
Brody and TS, that'd be more fun, I think, just because it's different. No one thinks about those guys.
Well, what I love about that movie, that came out in 1995, and long before comic books were really the in thing like they are now. And I love it. I mean, that's like one of Stan Lee's first movies. Maybe it wasn't his first movie, but that's when nobody else would put him in a movie. Now he was all, please.
And then he was in every Marvel movie.
Yeah. I love the fact that he lived long enough to see his creations make it to the big screen.
Go full circle like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So even if I'm not really into all the superhero movies anymore, I'm just so superheroed out. I still love the fact that there is an audience for it, and Stan Lee got to see his creations, and that's what makes me happy about those movies. Because for me, I think Deadpool is really the only one I like now. It's because it's making fun of how serious the other ones take themselves. But anyway,
I haven't seen a Marvel movie in the theaters since the first Iron Man. I haven't seen a Marvel movie at all since the first Avengers film. And it's not that I don't. I love Marvel comics. Marvel was my thing. I loved them growing up and all that. But by the time the movies were all getting bigger and bigger, I just lost interest. I know how it's going to end.
Exactly. You're going to get like 5 or 6 superheroes. They all have big egos. They're all very sarcastic. And then in the end, they kill the bad guy. Or one of them dies. Yeah.
And if they don't win, they're going to win in the beginning of part 2. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, I love film series. Don't get me wrong. That's not, but it's just, And maybe one day I'll wake up like, I have to watch all these. It might just hit me and it'll be like 2 weeks of my life where I sit and watch all these movies. But right now it hasn't happened.
and then a month later,
like Captain America. I did like the Avengers. I just didn't. When the more came out, I missed the boat on them. I just never went back.
The one I like the best, I think, is Logan, which is the Wolverine, but it's not really Wolverine. It's the origin.
It's also it's not the same Marvel universe though, too. It's a different.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like
I liked Logan a lot, actually.
Yeah. So I just brought that movie up because out of all the superhero movies, that was really because it was more of a character study, similar to the Joker. I personally
the Joker was really good.
Yeah, and I think he did a phenomenal job. I mean, it's funny because I always talk about, like I said, I think that Jack Nicholson was the great TV, Burt Ward, Adam West type Joker. Then Heath Ledger was more of the maniacal, crazy Joker, and Heath Ledger was more of the tortured soul character development Joker. They all were 3 different types, but they were all 3 great roles.
What I really liked about the new Joker film too was how they still, because I thought when they said, "Oh, we're making a Joker movie, but it has nothing to do with Batman." They were just taking the idea of the Joker and making a different movie. And I read that, I'm like, oh, that'll be cool. I'd be curious to see what they do with that. So I had no idea going in that they were going to tie it into Batman still. And Wayne is there, and you meet Bruce Wayne as a kid. It's like, oh, I did not see that coming, because I thought they were going to be so far removed.
Yeah.
And then when it took place in Gotham, I'm like, well, of course it takes place in Gotham, But then you find out that, maybe they're half brothers and all that. Like, I hope I'm not spoiling anything to anybody, but oh, but I just didn't see that coming. I was really impressed by that, because they still managed to tie it into not the DC universe of movies, but make so that the world of DC Comics. And I was like, cool.
Speaking of Batman, you're the one who showed me the new trailer, and I know he had COVID. The one who's playing Batman now, but so they put it on hold for a little bit. And I think
it comes out next year now, or
yeah. But the trailer looks great. I would never ever picture him as Batman, but from what I saw in the trailer, I'm definitely intrigued to watch it.
Those are the best Batman, the guy you least expect, because Bruce Wayne is the guy you least expect to be Batman. That's why Michael Keaton is so good, because you'd never think Michael Keaton should be Batman.
I liked him, and I know you like him as the best. I still
he's
like
my favorite.
Bale. Yeah,
he's still my favorite.
Yeah, I like Christian Bale. I think because I like those movies better. I did like the Tim Burton movie, and I thought that was a great movie. But I just love the darkness of Christian Bale.
The Nolan films are not comic book movies. Where Tim Burton's 2 movies are definitely comic book movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Nolan films are these crime dramas that happen to have a guy in a bat suit. Yeah,
it looks like
they're good though, because they play it a completely different way.
It looks like from what I saw the trailer, the new one is going to be more in that vein, a
little
bit darker and not.
I'm excited. I mean, I'll go see that.
Yeah,
maybe.
Maybe you can make a superhero puppet.
It's funny. We keep saying that we want to do one of each, like hit each genre. Now that we did Head, and you can do horror with puppets. And we did comedy. We've done R-rated comedy. We've done family films. We want to do like a romantic comedy. We want to do an action film. We want to do one of each genre, even if it's not like a full-length feature film, even if it's a short film. We want to kind of hit it all with puppets at some point. I don't know how to write a romantic comedy, but somebody can.
Just watch a week of General Hospital. You'll have a script in no time.
Right. We did the sitcom thing though. We did Risley Brothers with a sitcom. We just didn't have a laugh track. Maybe we should have, but I think that's one of the goals for Elmwood, is to try and do a little bit of everything, but with puppets, because puppetry is not a genre. It's a medium to tell a story. It's different. Like animation is not a genre. You can do action films, musicals, romantic comedies. Look at what Disney does. They do a little bit of everything, or an anime. They do every genre, but with animation. I'd love to do that with puppetry too. Love to make puppetry be part of making puppetry that popular. Because right now puppetry is either kids shows or fantasy, but or what we're doing, because Elmwood's definitely doing something a little different.
How long does it usually take from the idea all the way to the finished product? So when you have an idea in your head, like, all right, I want to write a horror movie, how long did Head take? We'll use that as
Head took from the original idea of doing a horror movie to putting Head out was 9 years. The reality, though, from when I wrote the script and then we sat on it. So when we finally decided, so we'll say if we take the month it took me to write the first draft, if we take all that time that we didn't do anything with it out, and then when we decided to actually do it, it was a year. We decided in the end of 2013, I feel like it was the end of 2013, that Head was gonna be our next project. We had wrapped up Steve the Vampire, we'd wrapped up a few other things, and we had nothing on the plate. And it was like, now what? And Mike was like, what about that horror movie? It's like, yeah, I guess we'll do that now. And we tried auditioning actors and all that. So from like fall 2013 to March 2015, so like a little over a year it took us to get the movie done. And had we decided to do an act with puppets up front, we would have knocked 6 months off of that. So
You work only, you thinking of the writing, do you only write when inspired, or can you just sit there, all right, I want to write a script, I'm going to get it done within the next 2 weeks? Or
It depends. It's both. You know, I know when I get inspired, it's always better.
Yeah.
But I also sometimes when I sit down and start writing, I get inspired. You know, you get the words start coming, and you're like, all right, this is back and rewrite immediately because you got something finally kicked in. You know, so it had was one of those things where I came home from work and I was thinking about how we never made that other horror movie, how we canceled it because it wasn't coming together. And I knew we were getting some bad snow that weekend, and I knew it'd be snowed in where I lived. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a pizza. I'm going to get a 12-pack, and I'm going to start writing this horror movie tonight just for fun, just to get it out of my system. And as I said, I wrote the first draft really in 3 days, like most of it, you know, and it was like, right on, you know?
I just love how every story starts with, I got a 6-pack of beer, a bottle of whiskey, and a pizza. I'm ready.
Yeah, right.
Go.
It's just like, yeah, you know, like there's certain, like when I'm writing, like I know when I'm writing, it's like I have a glass of water and a coffee usually.
Yeah.
Those are my main things when I'm writing. That just happened to be, it was a Friday night and I was off for the weekend. So I got the beer too, you know? You know, but yeah, I know, like I'm a coffee fiend. I'm a caffeine guy more than you.
It's me. Whenever I write, I usually, like, I like to go to I used to go to Barnes and Noble a lot, but then I knew too many people there, so they would start bothering me. So I like to go to yeah, they're like, oh, Rich, what are you doing? What are you doing? Let me talk to you. So then I started going to a place called Rebel Dog, and there's other places. It's like going to a coffee house where nobody really bothers me. Get my big thing of tea and just start writing.
Start writing, yeah.
I even told Rebel Dog, I said, I should give you at least a thank you because I wrote my whole book here. Yeah, where's
yeah, should leave a copy there or something. Yeah. So, but I have my flow for writing though, for sure. Myself and Rick Corbo are the primary writers for Elmwood Productions right now. Yeah, just, you know, coffee, water. As the night goes on, then I grab a beer. But again, I have beer. But like, yeah, that's just kind of where I go with it. Yeah.
It's almost like early Stephen King. He doesn't remember his first 3 novels.
I don't really, it's funny, I don't really remember writing a lot of head. You know, not that I wasn't drunk, but it's because it came out so quick. It was just like, I remember the next morning, I remember the first night I started it, finally just crashing. I mean, like I was living alone too. And I remember just like 2, 3 in the morning, finally just like, okay, go to bed. You know? And then waking up and my computer was still on. I was like, so what did I do last night? Oh, how far did I get with this? Because I was dreaming about it. I remember that, but I didn't remember how much I wrote. Like, yeah.
I love it. It's actually, for one of my stories, something similar happened where I had a dream and it was so vivid. I hurry up, wrote it down before I forgot it, and then added that to the story because this was too good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like Josh and Todd had a couple moments like that where, because it was originally gonna be a short film and then we expanded it into a feature film, and there was, I remember like when we were shooting, it was while we were shooting, something hit me and I started writing a scene on the back of the script, and we shot that scene that day. You know, this conversation that had to happen, and it was so important that it was like, oh my God, we're shooting this next, because we were a location that it had to take place in. It was the same, but holy crap, you every now and then it just hits you, and it's like, this is what was missing. Yeah,
exactly. And
speaking of whatever, and
speaking of stories, you and I were talking about this. Hopefully it'll happen sometime soon. You're gonna take one. I wrote 5 stories. It's a book, Confessions of a Freak Mind. You're gonna take one of my stories and turn it into a puppet movie. All right, there we go.
Yeah, we're gonna make it into a Graveyard Gill short. Yeah,
I love it. I personally think that the Lincoln House Massacre would be the best one to do. It's more of a ghost story.
Let's do that one.
It's sort of not like Josh and Todd, but there's 2 boys that go out on a ghost tour. They're making fun of. They're taking it not too seriously. They find out how serious it really is when they bring something back. I think it would be
I love that idea. Yeah,
probably the easiest to film, but it's also perfect for the Elmwood Productions. What you do, it's that genre.
Let's do it. Yeah, I mean, we're up for that because we're trying to do a few more Graveyard Gills before within the next year. Like we want to do like 3 or 4 just to keep them coming because they're fun to shoot too. Not everything for a big project. Sometimes you just do it for you, and then you put it out there and people like Christmas Wishes, like Jungle Man. Jungle Man is now an award-winning short film, and we did that as a joke.
See, sometimes that's the best thing when you're not even really taking it seriously, and that's the ones that really catch on with the public. And you're like, wow, this is great, and you're like, I was just having fun. I didn't even think anybody would care about this.
When I was in junior high school, me and a couple of buddies made these stupid horror movies, like on videotape, and And they were parodies of like late night horror movies. You know, we had the commercial breaks and everything. Years later, I kept joking around about we should. I was saying for years, we should remake that with puppets, like jokingly.
Yeah.
And my buddy Rich Mislovitz joined the team, and he was part of some of those short films. He's like, "Yeah, we should." I'm like, "All right, I'll write it." Just for fun, I'll write it. And then next thing that became our project for the last quarter of 2018. We built. I mean, and I didn't really build any new puppets for it, but maybe one. I think one. We took a bunch of older puppets and changed them to be these characters, which was nice. So it was like, all right, we're not using these puppets anyways. Let's turn them into. And then we shot it in like 2 weekends, and it was like, when it was over, we're like, this came out way better than it should have. Yep.
I love it. So you're working on Bernice 2.
Bernice 2.
Talking about the 2 head sequels that you're going to be working on. You also maybe a Lincoln House Massacre from Confessions of a Frenetic Mind. What else is in store for you and Elmwood Productions?
We've got we're doing a second run of Animal Behavior episodes, a second series, another 13 of those that we're going to shoot the second half of the summer when we wrap up Bernice 2, and then we have guaranteed things we're going to be doing is another web series, longer episodes, not your typical like Risley Brothers or Animal Behavior, but they're 5 to 10 minutes. These are going to be like 20-30 minute episodes. A series called Defining Monsters, which is about a monster hunter, you know, and they're the team of monster hunters, like a duo, and their journeys in the underground world of what monsters are, and they're having a moral dilemma in the process of hunting monsters. So it's kind of like what is a monster in this day and age, you know? And instead of it just being, oh, we're hunting vampires in this episode, we take the concept of vampire and mix it with some other modern folklore. So it's kind of taking 2 things and putting one into it to kind of, it's a cool concept, and the stories are coming along. There's still a lot of writing to be done for it, and it does tie into Head, which is kind of cool. So it'll be interesting. Yeah. It
reminds me of a show I used to watch in the 70s, The Night Stalker.
Yeah, you know, it's inspired by Night Stalker, it's inspired by X-Files, it's inspired by Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's definitely the creature of the week type thing, you know. But different. And what I like about it, there's a different humanity to it. That'll be cool.
Well, that's what I like about you, because I've had this conversation with so many people. There's really nothing completely original. Almost everything's been done. But when you could take something that was already been done, but put your own spin on it, then it's original. And I've seen your work, and I love Animal Behavior. I love Risley Brothers, and I mean, I can go on and on.
I always try to distill our stuff down to like something that you can relate to, as far as like, oh, what's Animal Behavior? I'm like, if the Muppets made Looney Tunes.
I love it. Yeah, because
that's really, it's that slapsticky thing, but with Muppet style puppets. Oh, how do you explain Risley Brothers? Oh, it's Cheers, but with puppets.
Yeah, I love it.
You try to bring it down to like just something that people can relate to. You know, what's Head? Oh, Head is a B horror movie. You know, it's an old school B horror movie. You know, like just kind of bring it down to as simple as possible to explain it, you know, and then people go, oh, okay, you know, like your ears will have it's Cheers with puppets. It's Cheers. If the Muppets started in Cheers, you'd have Risley Brothers, you know.
I love it. Now, we mentioned Kevin Smith is a huge influence on you, and Kevin Smith is, and also I know you're a big Quentin Tarantino fan as well.
Yeah, you know, I kind of fell off on him over the years, but I'm still a fan. Yeah, I don't like some recent films as much, but
I can go back and forth with you. Maybe that could be a real talk episode about the Quentin Tarantino movies, because I have a lot of opinions on that, and we'll save that for another show. Because
there you go. He hasn't made a bad movie. He has not made a bad movie. I'm just saying some of his newer films didn't get me as well. Some have though. Like Once Time in Hollywood, adore that movie.
I love that movie. Yeah, that was a great movie. The reason I brought those 2 names up is because you like them, and those 2 are huge, and they love dialogue. Are you? Are you a dialogue fan or dialogue person when you're writing your stories, or is it more about the scene when you can you can say a whole lot without saying anything?
Yeah, I want to because with puppets, you know, there's a lot of talking heads, obviously. You know, but I'd rather show than tell when possible.
Exactly.
It's the look, but sometimes you have to have a character who gives the speech. You know, you have to have that from time to time, because there's a good comedy to it, there's drama to it, you know. And I like talky. I mean, Kevin Smith, like I said, is so talky, but I also like a rhythm to it. There's a lot of like everyone right after Clerks came out and Pulp Fiction came out, they came out the same year. All these underground filmmakers, all these independent filmmakers were all trying to make those style of films where everyone was saying witty, quick dialogue, and none of it was witty. It was just quick, because these two guys can write witty, quick things, but all these other writers were trying it, or at least people were trying to do these like Pulp Fiction gangster films that went nowhere, and there was a ton of Kevin Smith clones too. I mean, tons of them for a few years, and luckily a lot of those filmmakers either got better or disappeared,
Well, similar to 1999 when Blair Witch Project came out. Everybody with a camcorder thought they were a filmmaker.
Oh my God. It's still like that. I mean, it was great. You want to be a filmmaker, get a video camera, get some friends, have a good story though. You can be the worst actors in the world. Clerks, none of them are really tremendous actors. But they pulled it off because there was heart and a good story. And that's my problem. Like Blair Witch, they were great actors. That's why it went over so well. So yeah, anybody can be a filmmaker right now. You just have to have a video camera and some friends who want to do it with you. But make sure you have a good story to tell.
Funny, speaking of that, I saw a movie last night with Mila Kunis and Glenn Close. It's based on a true story where she's a heroin addict. And I saw her husband. I said, where do I know this guy from? And at the end, it said Josh Leonard. I said, aha. He's the one who played Josh in Blair Witch.
Yeah.
So he seems like he's the only actor that's still only out of the three still acting.
What was her name? Heather
Donahue.
I know she doesn't act it much. I know she. Yeah. I watched an interview with 2 or 3 years ago. She runs a pot farm.
Oh really? Yeah, she's probably making a lot more money with that. Yeah.
She runs illegal, she kind of went in that direction, and because it was a great interview with her. She wrote a book about it. And she was like 3 years or 4 years removed from Blair Witch, and the best thing she was getting was like a sci-fi film, a sci-fi channel film, and she's lost interest. And I'm like, all right, she had different calling, which is good.
I think that we'll talk about that movie for a second, because I think that was sort of the right place at the right time. It's when the internet was just coming out, and people didn't, the way they promoted the film, it made it seem like it was real. People were, I want to help find these kids. I want to help you with this. So people weren't sure if it was real or not. I mean, now people look at it like, I
didn't fall for it.
No, me neither.
Yeah, I saw the trailer and I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, there's no way their families would let this movie be real if this was real footage. The police would be sitting on this footage for 20 years. Then maybe there'd be a movie. Any real footage of that kind of stuff, that not the witchcraft and all that, but anybody missing person's footage goes on the news, not to the movie theater. Yeah.
Well, I like the Italian horror movies too. Lucio Fulci, Dario Argento.
I just watched Suspiria last week.
Oh, really? Yeah, I haven't seen that in years. It's a great.
I couldn't sleep, and I was like, you know what? Click,
But I can't remember who the filmmaker was. I did meet him. He doesn't really speak that much English, but he made a movie called Cannibal Holocaust, and it's basically the same thing where they found the footage, and the movie was so real. There's a scene in there where a woman's on I can't remember.
She's impaled. Yeah.
Yeah, impaled. Sorry. Yeah, like Vlad the Impaler. Someone said that she's impaled, and they had to go to court to prove that they didn't actually kill her.
They didn't actually kill her. Yeah. She came to court, and they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
Yep. Yeah. So that's when I saw it, because I saw that years before I saw Blair Witch. I'm like, or maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. So it wasn't that long. But I said, wait a minute, there's a lot of similarities. But it was I did like that genre well. But then just like you said, too many people came out trying to do the same thing. And
I tell people, I was telling people all the time, if you want to be a filmmaker, like I said earlier, just get a camera, get some friends, make a movie. On YouTube, you're now a filmmaker.
Yep.
And then just keep getting better. Because we get people all the time come to Elmwood Productions. Hey, I want to make a movie. Will you make my movie? And it's like, no. How about you make your movie and we can help you out? I'll be happy to loan you a camera. I'll be happy to give you a boom mic and loan you a boom mic. I'll be happy to let you borrow some lighting. We'll even come and help you set up. I'll be happy to help, but I'm not making your movie because I don't have time to make my own.
Yeah.
Sometimes, so
you have people trying to sell you their scripts.
Unless you're gonna pay us to come help you make your movie, then I'm down.
I was gonna ask you, do you have everybody say I'll sell you my script and you can make the movie for me, or no?
Yeah, but I write my own. We write so many of our own scripts. Why would I buy somebody else's script? Usually our ideas come organically from our group and then we go and do it.
Exactly.
I've had a ton of people come to me and be like, oh, I have a movie script, you should make it. And usually my response is, well, what's your budget?
And then you never heard from them again.
And then they're like, what do you mean? You're going to make, well, don't you want to make it? It's like, well, I haven't read it yet. 1, 2. if you want me to make it, either you're giving me the script or you're paying me to do it. And if you're giving me the script, that means I really want to make it, you know, like, so it's tough. And I'm not greedy, you know, but if somebody comes to me that's a stranger, especially a stranger, it's like, you know, it's like, I don't know you. Why would I want to just buy your movie off of you? I'm not Hollywood. We don't have that kind of money. I pay a mortgage, you know, I pay bills. I put gas in my car. I'm not, you know, I'm not,
You have whiskey and a six-pack to buy. You can't be
yeah,
wasting.
I'm not John Peters, you know, I'm not like these big Hollywood mogul type guys. I'm just a guy in Connecticut who makes puppet movies. but like going back to that, like when I remember when Steve the Vampire first like really hit and got out there and it was getting known, I would have people left and right, like a friends of friends type thing. Oh, you did that. I have this idea. Yeah, that's great. Write it down. You know, I'm always saying, write it down. You have an idea? Write it down. Telling me about it, I'm gonna forget. You know, write it down. Get it to me if you want me to see it. And then when Head came out, people like we used to work with and things like that, especially when I hit YouTube, not YouTube, when I hit Amazon and all that, we're kind of the woodwork wanting, oh, well, I used to work with you before. I want to come back now. It's like, where were you the past 5 years when we were struggling? We're still struggling, but where were you then? You took us off, and now, oh, you see that this movie's on Amazon, and if to watch it, you have to pay $4, and now you want to come back, and it's like, I get about 0.8 cents of that $4. You know, Amazon doesn't exactly pay you well. And I'm not even exaggerating. It's like 0.8 cents.
Yeah, similar for musicians with iTunes.
Yeah, it's the same concept. It's the exact iTunes and Spotify. It's the same concept. So like, I'm not saying it's a bad deal, but it's not for us. It's not a bad deal. We wouldn't have it on Amazon otherwise. For paid to make the movie, it's a great deal.
Yeah,
we're not rich from Head, you know.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, when Head 2 and Head 3 come out, they already know. As one person said, "You're legit, man. You're legit." So
we're legit. Yeah.
When Part 2 and 3 come out, they'll say, "You know what? I want to invest some money into this." I mean, you've been around 20 years.
Local artist show is legit.
Exactly. We're legit, man. But you've been around 20 years, so obviously you're doing something right.
We're doing it because we love it, and that's the key.
Yeah.
You know, like Mike, like I said, my buddy Mike was here this morning. He played Bruce. He played her.
I know Mike.
You know Mike, big red beard, Mike.
Yep.
We were here this morning. We were talking about like I was like, "You ready for 20 more?" And he's like, "Dude, as long as we're doing this, we're doing this. I love it." And it's not about the money; it's about having fun and creating things. So
yeah. Well, I think that unfortunately most people's motivation is to make a buck, and when they don't make a buck for the first couple of times, like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. To me, and I don't make money doing any of these things I did, like radio, TV, podcast. I just do it because I love meeting interesting people like yourself and other guests, and I just love having fun doing this. I'm not trying. I mean, believe me, like just like you, if success happens, I'm not going to stop and say, oh no, but I don't.
We make our money really off commercial work. You know, you see an ad on TV with a puppet, it might have been us, and that's how we made our money. You see, we'll do editing for other people. We'll do, you know, I've done, you know, instructional videos with puppets. I've done, you know, like that kind of thing. That's really where our money comes, the pocket money we get comes from, you know. And we've done Kickstarters. We've done 2 Kickstarters to finance projects. So
where can people get in touch with you if they want to have a commercial made with puppets?
They can just go right to elmwoodproductions.com. We have a contact sheet there. It goes right to my email, which is john@elmwoodproductions.com as well. And then we go from there. I mean, we recently did a bunch of ads for Crawley's dealerships, the car dealership in Connecticut. So, you know, and that was, you know, their advertising company reached out to us, and we built the puppet, and they hired us to perform it, which is great. You know, we do that kind of stuff very often, which is good. Or we've edited other people's videos for, you know, like Ricky does a lot of that. So our bread and butter really isn't from our own movies. It's from commercial work, industrial work, which I don't really talk about in these interviews because it's not, you know, it's not my work, you know.
Well, another way you can make money is by, I don't know if you're interested, but editing people's podcasts, because you do such a phenomenal job. How can people get in touch with you if they want their podcast to look as good as the local artist show?
Same thing, just elmwoodproductions.com or my email, john@elmwoodproductions.com. Yeah.
If you're watching this for the first time, check out Claw's Corner, check out Real Talk, check out the past episodes. He does a phenomenal job, brings this from a 7.5 to a 12. So
Thank you.
No, you do. And ask Wibo. Wibo can't stop raving about you.
Oh man, very professional, man.
I'm trying.
Here's mine.
So please, anybody watching this, reach out to Jon Bristol, Elmwood Productions. You're not going to be disappointed. He does nothing but 1,000%. He puts nothing but 1,000% into everything he does. So you won't be disappointed. And we appreciate Wibo and I appreciate all the things you've done for us. And it was great having you on the show.
Right?
Are there anything that we didn't cover that you want to talk about?
Just want to say thank you. Thank you to not just you guys for having me tonight, but to everyone who watches the work that all of us do, not just me, but the two of you as well. Thank you to everyone for participating, because by watching you are participating. You're there, you're a part of the communication, you're part of the
and I do appreciate all the feedback. I do get a lot of feedback on this show and the other show. And John, I always try to relay a message to you whenever we get good positive feedback. And so thank you very much, as John said, for watching. And keep watching. Subscribe to the channel, Rich Sierra YouTube. Wibo, any last words?
Good night.
Exactly. Sweet dreams, gentlemen.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
All right. That wraps up the latest episode of Rich and Wibo Present the Local Artist Show. A great thank you goes out to our guest, writer, producer, director, puppeteer, and the man that makes this show look so good, Mr. Jon Bristol. I would also like to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone.
Suckers!
Bernice. 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 Bernice.
Bernice.
Bernice. Bernice. Bernice.